Hey Tribe, welcome back to another Sunday Coffee Talk. This is actually a special Sunday Coffee Talk because this is the first Sunday Coffee Talk of the year 2026, baby. And I actually changed the topic of this coffee talk because I changed it over. Since it's the first coffee talk of the year, we got to talk about this is the year of reaping, my friends. That's what we're going to talk about today. And this is something I've been kind of thinking about. I, I mean, every time during this time of the year, once it starts getting close to Christmas, when things start to kind of slow down, uh, or they seem to slow down anyway. Let's put it that way. Um, you start reflecting. You start reflecting on your life. You start reflecting on 2025, the previous year. You start reflecting on what do you want 2026 to be. And in the beginning, I was kind of thinking the year of blessings, but that didn't really ring a bell with me. I was like, that's not really hitting hard. Then all of a sudden, I thought about the year of reaping. And I'll explain what I mean here in a second. But anyway, before we get going here, remember every Sunday we have a Sunday Coffee Talk. Now, on Sunday Coffee Talks on my channel it's a time just to kind of we sit down. It's actually Sunday morning in Thailand. It's I woke up at 3:30 in the morning and I couldn't sleep. And it's probably almost 4 a.m. right now. So 4 a.m. in Thailand, having my coffee, sharing this moment with you. But anyway, every Sunday it's a chance. It's more of a casual video, one take wonder. We sit down, we have discussions, and we also have the Super Thanks Spotlight. That where you leave a Super Thanks, attach a question to it, a question around success and manifesting, something you're trying to figure out. And that's what we discuss on every single Sunday. Just because I kind of had the thought, I've been doing the Sunday Coffee Talk, I think almost a year now. I got to look back. I think it's been almost a year, but there's kind of an idea I had because as the channel gets bigger and bigger, more and more people comment. Of course, I can't answer all the comments. So it's a way for the tribe, everybody on the channel to kind of engage. If you have questions, we can kind of dig deep on your questions. So that's what Sunday Coffee Talk is all about. And of course, it's kind of more of a casual, laid back. I'm not doing fancy editing, and except that sometimes it can be long-winded. But anyway, let's get back to the year of reaping. And let me take a sip of coffee first. I'm a little bit sleepy. I mean, I kind of feel awake, but when I look at myself in the camera, I'm like, oh, I look sleepy. But anyway, what does the year of reaping mean? The year of reaping, there's a lot of us out there that we've been sowing the seed, my friend. And some of us feel like we've been sowing the seed for several years. We've been putting in the work, putting in the hard time, putting in identity work, trying our best to be the most successful version of us. We've been aware, we catch ourselves, we catch our bad habits, we catch old decisions we're making. We're making new decisions, no matter if it scares us or not. We're trying our best to remain in the fire. You understand? We're trying our best we draw the line in the sand and we try our best to stand there and be unshakable of everything going on around us. You understand? And now, it comes to a moment where it's like, now it's time to reap. That's why I love the year of reaping. 2026 is the year of reaping because you've sown the seed. You've sown the seed for many years, and now it's your time to reap. Now it's your time to reap through the rewards. everything unfolds for you in 2026. And it doesn't take the whole year of 2026. Everything starts to unfold immediately in 2026. That's what you got to believe. But I think at this point, what I would love to do is kind of reflect back to 2025. And now I've told, like, some of you that are adamant watching all my videos, I've told snippets of this story. But my whole 2025 almost is in last year. I, at this time, or even around Christmas time of last year, I broke my lease in Waihin. I lived in Waihin for a year and a half, and I lived in a condo down there. Waihin, Thailand, by the way, just in case you don't know where Waihin is. And because they were just doing things I didn't like. They were crossing boundaries, and enough was enough. So then I broke my lease legally in Thailand. That way I can get back the security deposit. In the beginning, they fought me on it, but I still got it back. So Aang and I, at first we were going to go over to Jomtien and check out Jomtien, see kind of how I liked it. Because I wasn't really, Waihin was just okay, but there's a lot of things I didn't like about Waihin. I thought Waihin was, in one way, was kind of a little bit more on the dangerous side. So there's just things I didn't really care for. So, but then we came up here for the holidays last year. So then I just had this intuition to kind of, well, maybe we should come up here for a few months. And that was the thing, that we're going to come up here for a few months, and maybe after Sagrand, then go back down to Jomtien. Okay, now Sagrand is the Thai New Year, so Sagrand is in April. So that's what we did. We came up here in February last year, February 2025. Our goal was only to stay for a few months. And since I've been up here several times before, the real big thing I was thinking that for 3 months, it would be a really cool time to just focus on work and focus on me. You know what I mean? Back then, when I talk to myself, I don't call it identity work, but that's what I really mean. Focus on myself, focus on becoming the most successful version of Chad. Because I knew that there's no distractions up here. There's no distractions because there's literally nothing to do. So, but anyway, what kind of unfolded was kind of really deep identity work. What kind of unfolded was really, now kind of thinking back, was really special. There's a lot of moments that I felt like going home, like running back home, booking a ticket and go back home. And it exposed things in me that I didn't know that was there, to deal with. And honestly, I kind of felt like maybe not the first time in my life, but to really kind of remain in the fire, to really kind of, what I mean by being unshakable of chaos going on around you. Okay. 3 months turned into, I'm still here. Still here in January 2026. Okay. But what kind of like let it kind of on, we're still here, is that, Aang's dad wasn't doing so well. So Aang spent a lot of time taking care of her dad, taking him back and forth to the hospital and stuff like that. His health totally turned around since we've been here. So that's kind of been the main reason. So 3 months turned into 11 months. So 11 months is right now. Next month, February, will be 1 year we've been here. Now, I'm not planning on staying here. You know what I mean? I'm not planning on living here, but 3 months turned into 11. 3 months doing identity work turned into 11 months of doing identity work. And when I talk about identity work really fast here, in the description, I did create a 30-day breakthrough challenge. This is identity work. This is kind of the basics to identity work that leads you into more advanced identity work, what I went through. It's really, really good. I took a lot of time to put it together. So I'll put that in the description for you to check out. So definitely check it out. Definitely do it. It goes to the root cause of what's really holding you back. Okay. If you think manifesting isn't working, these techniques isn't working, this will solve it. Okay. So like I said, there's been kind of things in me that really got exposed up here and I think it got exposed up here is because of a couple things. One, there was no distractions. It was just me focusing on me. And, in the beginning, I focused on a lot of work. And once I stepped away from work, there was nothing to do except just be aware of Chad. So I'm not even joking about that. I kind of say it jokingly, but, there's no restaurants to go to and eat at. There's no, go out and have a beer. If you want to have a beer, you go buy it, bring it home. That's just, you want food, you go buy it, bring it home. That's kind of Thai village life up in Surin. So I think that the biggest thing that kind of started getting exposed in me is that my nephew, I've talked about this before, my nephew has high functioning autism. He's been diagnosed his whole life. He's been professionally diagnosed with it. I've never really thought I had high functioning autism until about 2021. In 2021, I lived in Los Angeles for 18 years. In 2021, that's when I moved back to Ohio. That was after the pandemic. And I spent a few months with my mom, brother-in-law, stuff like that. And a few months, and of course my nephew's there. But my brother-in-law at the time, because he was hanging around me a lot, he was like, dude, you're just like Carson. Carson's my nephew. And so when he said that, it kind of made me think what does he really mean? But in 2021, that's actually when I came to Thailand. That's when I went to Phuket. I lived in Phuket for 1 year. Then I went back home, visit family. I came back, lived in Hua Hin for 1.5 years. Now I'm up in Surin. But since I've been up here, since Surin, Thai village life is very, very chaotic. Okay, it can be very chaotic. It can be very noisy. Locals can just blast music all hours of the day and night. They can play it all night long where you don't get good sleep. You know what I mean? They got dogs that just running around. They bark all night. They don't stop them. It's a way more chaotic. And how they build these Thai houses is just basically cement and steel. There's no insulation, like sound insulation or heat insulation. So things are louder. That's why if you ever visit Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, whatever, things can seem like, why does it seem so loud here or echoey here? It's because it's how they build. But being around more of a chaotic environment was the first time in my entire life. Okay. And what started happening was it started to trigger things in me. It kind of, and I had a lot of experience with high functioning autism just because my nephew had high functioning autism his whole life. Then my sister and I would always talk about it and stuff like that. And so that was kind of really the first time up here that I really felt like I had high functioning autism, because I had the traits. Now, all high functioning autism is is it doesn't mean I would be professionally diagnosed. It just means I'm neurodivergent or I'm on the spectrum. So you can be on the spectrum or neurodivergent and not be professionally diagnosed with autism or high functioning or Asperger's. Okay, it just means you're on the spectrum. Even ADHD can be on the spectrum. You understand what I'm saying if you have ADHD. Okay, ADHD like can cross over to high functioning because you can have the same traits. You can be hypersensitive. You can be hypersensitive to your environment or hypersensitive around people where noise and everything can, since you're hypersensitive to it, it can drain you if you can't get away from it. You understand what I'm saying? Uh, so it started, and I did a lot of research on this since I've been up here. Is lots of times people don't know they have high functioning autism until they're kind of placed in an environment that triggers it. Okay, because usually an environment will trigger it because you're hypersensitive to that environment. Because maybe back home, sometimes you can quit a job and get a new job, and that job will trigger it, just because it's a new environment, or something's happening or occurring in that job that's triggering those traits in you. Um, that's really kind of been an eye opener for me. I can't really go down a super rabbit hole with it, but it's really been an eye opener because it like I've always seemed like I've had control of my environment. Okay. And the type of work I do, manifesting success, environment plays a major role because your environment's going to shape you or break you. You know what I mean? Lots of times your environment is going to make you more successful or not. Okay. Kind of depending upon what you put yourself around. But I think like this time, like kind of reflecting back in 2025, is it kind of really made me more aware of like why to protect my environment, like more just because I have more of high functioning traits. You understand what I'm saying? Like when I talked about the music, that's what basically started to trigger me because I couldn't get away from the music. The music would just come in the house and it just felt like 24 hours a day that you're just constantly hearing music. And when you're constantly hearing the bass, I know it sounds funny, but when you're constantly hearing the bass, it's like the same bass in every flipping song. So it literally seems like you're listening to the same song, or the people's listening to the same song over and over and over and over and over again for 5 hours, and it literally like drives you nuts. but but that was an eye opener for me. Okay, and then I started doing massive research. Calling my sister, talking to her a lot more because she knows a lot more than me with high functioning because my nephew has it. Um, I'm just dealing with my nephew, just as a kid, you know what I mean? Not as an adult, but just as a kid growing up. So that's something I've worked through, and that's something that, to be able to kind of have more of a knowledge of why it's so important to design your life around your environment, to make your environment work for you, okay, not against you. And so it kind of gave me kind of a deeper meaning around it. I kind of exposed that in me. Um, a lot of other, and that basically kind of led. Okay, that was kind of I guess the holy grail. Okay, that basically kind of led into kind of why I kind of had this kind of fight or flight experience. Like what I mean by that, like when chaos happens, when shit happens, when shit hits the fan, okay, you don't like, okay, you either fight it or you have the flight response. I mean, you want to run from it. So that really exposed like something in me that I never thought I had before. I never thought like I ran from things, but it really exposed it where I just wanted to leave. I just wanted to get out of here. I wanted to get out of Surin. And I probably had at least 10 moments, at minimum 10 moments where, I would literally verbalize it, like to aim, like, dude, I'm gonna book a flight and go back home. I can't take it here. You know what I mean? I can't take the chaos, the loud music all the time. Either you got to do something, they got to turn it down, or I got to leave. I can't be in these conditions. You know what I mean? But during that time was something very unique. I always would have like a kind of a small intuition or a small little voice saying, it's not time to go yet. You know what I mean? So I would stay, hmm, kind of stay in the fire a little bit. Okay, not run. You know what I mean? And the more I recognized this, it took me a little bit while, but more I recognized this runner in me, since I'm older, I started to reflect back on different situations, past relationships, different things that's occurred in my life in the past that I ran from. And I don't even know what I want to say to that. Of course, it was very interesting, but it was an eye opener, and it was a major eye opener because, like I said, like I never really thought I was a runner. I never really thought like when the going gets tough, I run from it. Nobody wants to admit that. You understand? We all want to think like, when going gets tough, I stand there. I don't give up. But uh, kind of reality showed me that I was a runner. Okay, doesn't matter why I was a runner, but I was a runner. And that was kind of more exposed near the end of the year. Another thing during 2025 here, that kind of going through deep identity work, is creating, maintaining, upholding. I don't know if you can hear that rooster out there, um, being some crazy loud right now. Standards and boundaries. Okay, now with standards and boundaries for me, it's kind of been standards, boundaries, and decision making. Okay, like when I was brought up, when I was growing up, I you, basically decisions were made for you. I had a very overbearing parent. It was my dad, and you did what he wanted you to do. Period. As long as you lived in his household, you did what he wanted you to do. Period. He planned your day, and that's what you did. And you did that as long, he did. He was that way clear up until, even when I left for college and I would come home during college breaks, it would just go right back into that pattern. Okay. Uh, so for me, I was somebody, like I'm in my 20s and I've never learned how to really make decisions. But I know it sounds kind of corny, but I guess like at that age, like you're not confident in you making your own decisions. You always have to run to people and say, what do you think I should do? Because growing up, everybody made decisions for you. So as an adult, you're not confident in your own decisions. Okay, you make decisions, you're just not confident in your own decisions, which in a way makes you indecisive because you don't want to make decisions because your whole life, your parents made them for you. Okay, no matter if you liked it or didn't like it. Okay. And then what goes along with that is, standards or boundaries, is because you have no standards or boundaries growing up because you have this overbearing parent. Okay. Because when you have an overbearing parent, usually that overbearing parent is stepping over your boundaries and you don't do anything about it. So you end up becoming very passive, or you emotionally shut down. So, that's how I was, going through school. You had no standards or boundaries, or you emotionally shut down. I was like this clear up into my 20s. You know what I mean? And I mean, it didn't go away in my 20s because that was just childhood conditioning. Uh, because you're not, I mean, for you to have standards or boundaries means you have to stand up to a parent. You know what I mean? And just during that time, my dad was the type of dad, like if you stood up to him, it would literally be like, oh, you think you're a big boy now? Well, no, I'll take you outside right now. I'll show you you're not a big boy. You know what I mean? And he meant it. He's not joking. You know what I mean? You're going to challenge him, he'll take you outside and beat the shit out of you. I mean, that's, he's not joking around like that. So, but understand this. I'm just telling you because that was my upbringing. You know what I mean? Is that, as an adult now, like, I don't have no standards or boundaries. I don't even know what standards or boundaries are. Of course, you don't uphold them. Now I'm crappy at making decisions, okay, holding to decisions because that wasn't really ingrained in me. So this is stuff I've had to learn as an adult. The only way you learn this stuff as an adult is, guess what? You're thrown into it. You know what I mean? Either you have a job, like for me, either you go to college, you get a, I was kind of lucky in my career. I went from college to senior management, and you're kind of thrown into it. You're kind of thrown into management, senior management. Now you gotta manage people. You gotta tell people what to do, and you kind of thrown into it. Like you either sink or swim, and you got to figure it out. Then with standards or boundaries, you're thrown into it because adults are worse than kids most of the time. So you're gonna have adults that step over your standards and boundaries where you gotta say, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know what I mean? You can't have people overstepping your standards and boundaries all the time. And this is something I know a lot about because I struggle with it myself. You understand? You're talking to somebody that's had to work really, really hard on standards and boundaries and decision making. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because this kind of led into Thailand. Is like when I came to Thailand, you really have to, like here in Asia, in poverty countries, you know what I mean? You really have to have strong standards and boundaries. If not, you will get chewed up and spit out. Seriously. Like, guys come here retired and they lose everything here. You understand, they lose their life savings, they lose their house, they lose everything, okay? Lots of times it's over a girl or whatever, they try to help or I don't want to go down the rabbit hole with that, but it's never happened to me. But that's what I'm saying. Like when you come to kind of other countries with laws are very inconsistent and laws are not really for the foreigner, you can, if you don't have strong standards or boundaries, you can lose everything here. You know what I mean? And, there's no shame to anything. You understand. Like locals here have no shame. They really don't. Even if you took them to court, they have no shame to go up there and say, I have no money, I'm poor. There's just no shame. They say it because that's what gets them out of it. But going up here in Surin, that was exposed to me again, being a good decision maker, leading the relationship, having stronger standards and boundaries. And since I kind of teach this work, is what we have to realize in manifesting is that we manifest on the level of what we tolerate, my friends. And what I mean by that is you have to understand your subconscious mind knows you better than you know yourself. Your subconscious mind knows you by patterns and habits. It knows you're indecisive because that just creates confusion. Sometimes things aren't coming to you just because you're indecisive. You're not making a firm decision and just staying with it. You keep changing your mind all over the place. Okay? The bottom line is your subconscious mind knows that you're negotiable. You understand, my friends? Okay? What do I mean by that? Your subconscious mind knows you don't stick to what you say you're going to do. Your subconscious mind knows when you draw the line in the sand, well, when the going gets tough, you back up. When it starts getting rough, you run. Okay, when it starts getting rough, you run back to your comfort zone. Okay, your subconscious mind knows this. So if this is you and you're doing identity work, okay, you have to understand there's going to be a time that you just got to stand there and not flip and move, not give in, not give up, and it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel so uncomfortable you want to flip and run from it. It's going to take all your might not to run, okay? But that's your job, is because your whole life you ran. Your whole life your goal's up here, then you just keep on dropping your goal way down here. That's what I mean. You manifest on what you tolerate. You want your dream house, you don't see how it's going to come to you, then you drop your standards, you drop your standards, you drop your standard. You drop it so low, then you get this down here. But you initially don't get what you wanted in the first place because you kept on dropping your standards. You understand? This got kind of all exposed to me being up here. I've told this story before. I won't go into the whole story to kind of hit the point really fast. But a couple months ago, maybe almost 4 months ago, maybe 5 months ago, we got the puppies. Okay. Long story short, the puppies started going to the road. So the driveway don't have a driveway gate. They were going to the road. So I thought, well, it's only a matter of time before an accident happens. So then I talked to Aang. Aang always wanted to put up a driveway gate here at her house, but I've always said no. And because she always wanted to put up a cheap gate. So since we got the puppies, I thought, well, it's time to put up a gate. And at the time, I wanted to do the best thing. Besides put up a cheap gate for them, I wanted to put up a really, really, really good gate. Okay, something that's going to last for a long time. And so that's what we did. We found a gate that we kind of ran across in person here in the village. Then we asked who built it. They told us. Then we went to him and he said, "Oh yeah, I can make it." And I told him I wanted all top quality steel. I didn't want it to rust because since I've been in Thailand for 4 years, I mean, they cut corners, things rust very, very fast. So I was really adamant on, standards of boundaries, what I wanted. I knew what I wanted. I did research on how they protect the steel from rust, and I knew all the steps. That way, when I talk to somebody, I know. So I really went into it having all my standards of boundaries, having, communicating them, saying what I need to be said. And long story short, the whole project went to shit. you know what I mean? And I mean, it was just one thing after another I would catch them doing. I bought expensive paint. I didn't catch it until after the fact, but they watered it down because it changed the color of the paint because it was a dark paint or darker paint. They didn't protect the steel like a week after, a few days after it was finished, the whole thing started to rust. They cut the wood panels we have, they cut them too short. They left major gaps in it. It was just one thing after another. They scratched them. It was just, yeah. They built things crooked. It was just one thing after another. And that cost like $2,000. Okay. And it looks okay far away in the dark time, but once you're up close, it pretty much looks like shit. Okay. You're up close to it. You can see all the problems and errors and stuff like that. It cost $2,000, but it's probably going to cost me $2,000 to fix it because, a different contractor is going to have to tear it apart and rebuild it and reinstall and do all that stuff. So Of course, I'm livid. I'm livid. I'm more upset because of two things. I'm more upset because in the beginning, I really, really communicated my standards and boundaries. And this is kind of like the first time in my life, like really communicating them and having somebody just listen to you, agree with you, know all the steps. You knew everything how to do it. And just basically like, just turn around and do what he wants. You know what I mean? So you kind of felt like super violated in your standards and boundaries. At the same time, I'm trying to do the best thing for Aang and her place and stuff like that. Put up something really nice. My heart's in a good place. And I'm just like, how can my heart be in a good place? I want to do something really good for somebody. And this situation happens. I don't get it. I struggled with it. I struggle with this. I still struggle with it from time to time if I think about it. I just struggle with it in my mind. Like, I just don't understand. Like, you want to do something good for somebody, and it becomes a whole waste. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's up. Yeah, there's a gate, but now it needs to be fixed. So I struggled with it, and what that led is that it showed me a couple things. It showed me that yes, you got to have standards and boundaries, but you got to enforce your standards and boundaries. Another thing it showed me was that the first time I kind of seen it in my life, it was almost like the runner in me, but this time it was different. It was blame. Like I was blaming circumstances. I was blaming the contractor for doing an awful job, which was true. During the gate situation, I started blaming Aang because it was like, well, Aang has to not be interpreting right, or when I say it in English, she has to translate it in Thai. She has to be not translating it right, or maybe she's on their side, not my side, or she's playing in the middle, trying to appease both parties, which 100% that probably went on. Because Aang don't like conflict. So lots of times when you don't like conflict, is you tend to be in the middle. You tend to try to appease both parties, but the issue is when you start trying to appease both parties and one party is trying to take advantage, lots of times it doesn't go very well. Okay. But I saw it. And what I realized is that we always hear the saying that life is happening for you, life is happening for your benefit. And I was like, what in the world? How in the hell is this for my benefit? It wasn't even for me. It's not even my house. It's not even my property. I'm doing it for somebody else. I'm trying to do good for somebody else. I could have just put up a super, super cheap gate like Aang wanted. But, I chose an expensive gate that would last a long time. I was trying to do the best thing. How is this for my fucking benefit? That's how it really was. You know what I mean? I'm trying not to be too loud because people are sleeping. But then I saw it. I saw how, you have to accept 100% responsibility for your life. Everything going on in your life, no matter if you like it or not like it, it's your fault. Okay? Everything is from within out. And I've heard these sayings, I teach these things, okay? But I finally saw it in me, okay? Because I was so caught up with this flipping gate situation. It was in my head all the time. I was so flipping pissed about it, okay? That I started thinking back, and there was a moment where I communicated all my standards to him. I said, no rust, no rust, no rust. I probably repeated no rust 50 times. So he knew that I want you to treat the steel. I don't want it to rust in 1 week. I even said that, which it did rust in 1 week. Okay. The first thing they installed was it's the roller. Like you have the steel rod that goes across the cement on the ground where the gate rolls on. So that's the first thing they installed. Okay. They installed it. at nighttime that night, it rained. The next day it rusted. So I saw, like, this is only like 2 days into the project. Okay. The first day was buying all the stuff. The second day they installed that. Now it's the third day. I wake up and it's all rusted. So that showed me right there that they violated my standard of boundaries. That showed me right there. Listen to this. That showed me right there that they didn't care. Okay. Even though I said no rust, no rust, no rust, treat everything, they didn't. Okay. They overstepped the boundary. Okay. Now, I did confront it. Aang and I went over that. I had to take Aang so Aang could interpret and translate. But I listened to their excuses. I listened to, oh, we're not done yet. We're not done yet. Oh, I can fix it. I can fix it. And I was like, well, I shouldn't hear fix out of your mouth, because you should have treated it before you put it in the cement. Not trying to treat it afterwards. We can fix it. We can fix it. So lo and behold, my intuition was telling me just stop the project, cancel it, but they overstepped your boundary, find somebody new. But I didn't listen to it. And I listened to all their excuses and I said, okay. But listen, once they knew I dropped my standard, once they knew they got away with that, it just went from one thing to the next, my friends. They just did all types of shit. Where like everything needs to be fixed. Like everything, like even the gate needs to be torn apart, needs to be cut apart and re-put together and all that stuff. But once I saw that, it was an eye-opener for me. But you know why? Because I saw it was my fault. I saw that right there. I set a standard of boundary. My standard of boundary was no rust. It rusted. I should have stopped the job, but I didn't. I listened to their excuses. So right there, I could have stopped it. If I would have stopped it right there, none of this stuff would have happened. Okay, but I didn't listen. Okay, so again, when I look back at everything, it's my fault. And what I like to tell you is that once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you're aware of your habits, your patterns, your decisions, no matter if they're good or bad, once you're aware of it, you can't unsee it, my friends. Once you can go back in your imagination and you can see yourself doing something because you're replaying it in your mind, you can see yourself, you can't unsee it. You see that I was the problem. Chad. That doesn't give the excuse to the contractor. Yes, he still didn't do the right thing for me, but I could have stopped it. But I didn't. I let it go. I let it go on. For a brief moment there, I went back to the old version of Chad being passive, emotionally shutting down. And I let them overstep. Once they knew they could overstep me, they just did the same type of quality. You know what I mean? They didn't fix it. And on top of it, they didn't even fix it. They didn't even treat it. They kept on saying, oh, we're going to fix. They didn't fix nothing. Okay. It was just an excuse. Okay. And I started kind of reflecting back on other stuff like back in my life where I'd be like, I could see where I was the problem. Okay. And even the relationship between Aang and I, where I can see I'm the problem. Okay. Because like I said, like in the gate situation where I'm saying, well, Aang was kind of in the middle, trying to appeasing this person, then trying to appease me. Well, that would have never went on at all if I would just stuck to my standard of boundary. You know what I mean? So, and I know I'm hitting this hard, but I want you to see is those are, I think, kind of wrapping this up, those are the two things that really came to me. And it kind of came to me near the end, kind of close to the holidays when we started wrapping up 2025, is that everything kind of, I was almost like a light bulb kind of went off where I'm the problem with everything that's going on. It's my responsibility. Okay. I finally really saw it. What was exposed to me was the second thing was I started realizing I'm a runner. You know what I mean? You have to face your issues. You know what I mean? This is what you don't want to hear. This is what sometimes I don't want to hear. You got to stand in the fire, okay? Because if you have a history of running, giving up, running back to your comfort zone, no matter what you want to call it, well, when you go after your dream life, at a certain point, you're going to have to confront that. At a certain point, you're going to have to like not move because your subconscious mind is going to test you because your subconscious mind knows you always run back. So, those feelings are going to come back where you're going to have very intense moments that's going to make you shake and make you want to run back, but you can't do it. Okay. Another thing that I kind of saw within all this was that it's okay. You understand? It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to have negative experiences. It's okay to think negative. Okay. As long as we're not festering in it, it's okay. Because what I learned is that, if I have a bad day, it's just a bad day. I get up and I start over. I get up, I have a bad day. I had a bad day a few days ago because they were literally blasting music. Okay. I got up and I said, you know what? I'm not giving up. I'm still here. I'm still here, baby. No matter I felt like quitting the day before. You know what I mean? I got up and it's like, I'm still here. I'm not moving. I said, I'll tell myself this. I'll talk to myself. I do the line in the sand, baby. I'm not moving. Okay. No matter how intense it gets, I'm not moving. Sometimes I have to be careful what I say because the intensity will come. I was like, oh, Chad, you really want to challenge me, Chad. Okay. But even though I'm trying to keep it a light matter, the whole thing is, it's me seeing those patterns. Because once you can see those patterns, you can change it. You understand? Because listen to this. I'm talking from my perspective, is the most successful version of me, the most successful version of Chad, okay? And it can be the most successful version of you in this scenario too. The most successful version of me is not a runner. The most successful version of me faces what you fear, and they don't move. They're unshakable to it. Okay, they don't bring emotion to it. Yes, you got to deal with it, but they're not bringing emotion around it. You know what I mean? It's not shaking them, okay? The most successful version of me realizes that everything is my fault, okay? The most successful version of me has standards or boundaries, and they're not afraid to enforce their standards or boundaries. The most successful version of me is very, very, very decisive, okay? You make decisions, but you're confident in making your decisions. You're confident that you're making a great decision because you're making decisions from your intuition, your gut feelings. That's what's leading you to make your decisions. Okay? And you might not be struggling exactly what I struggle with, maybe similar, maybe different, but you got to look at it like that. Okay? That's why you're going through identity work. You're breaking these old patterns. Because remember, your old patterns is what's keeping you stuck in that old self, your old identity. Okay, that's why I just did a video on this. That's why life repeats. That's why things keep on cycling. Okay, it's not cycling to punish you. It's not cycling to punish me. Okay, I don't believe that. It's not punishing you. It's the only reason it's cycling is because you're remaining the same person. You're doing the same thing over and over again. You're making the same decisions over and over again, but you're expecting a different result, but you're not getting a different result because you're making the same decisions over and over again. Okay, you want a different result? You got to make brand new decisions. But listen, brand new decisions are going to scare the living shit out of you because you're not used to making those types of decisions. But your most successful version of you is. Okay, the most successful version of you is totally comfortable making that level of decision that scares you. Okay. So the whole point of manifesting, the whole point is you becoming right now today like that most successful version of you. You understand? I know this kind of really got off on a tangent, but it started off with a year of reaping, but then I thought, kind of reflect because we're talking about the new year and everything, kind of what I learned and all that jazz, going through identity work and stuff like that. And this isn't the first time I went through identity work, but I think just being up here in Surin, my back was against the wall. It wasn't, again, it wasn't easy for me to run. Okay, all those times I felt like running, going back to the States, it wasn't easy. Okay, because Surin is far out. You know what I mean? There's the closest airport is Bangkok. Bangkok is with no traffic. Okay, the Bangkok is 6 hours away with no traffic. So the airport is 6 hours away. So it means I got to take a bus down there. So even if I was going to fly out, I got to take a bus down there, spend the night there, then get on the plane. Then minimum, it's a 24-hour plane ride, anywhere from 24 to 30 hours to get back to the States. So it's quite a ways. You know what I mean? It's so that's what kind of talked me out of it, because I was just kind of like, dude, I don't want to do that. So so it was really kind of the first time, like, there wasn't a plan B, C, D, E, and F. It was just, I'm here. This is what I'm doing. My back's against the wall. I gotta face it. I gotta face things that I don't like. Okay. I gotta set standards of boundaries and enforce standards of boundaries, even though I don't want to do it. I gotta do it. Okay. And I know I'm repeating myself, but when your back's against the wall, you kind of, that's that principle, like you burnt your bridges, you burnt the boats. There's no way out. Okay, you just gotta. Only thing is, you just feel like I'm just standing there and taking it. You know what I mean? And that's when I thought about when it became the first of the year, 2026. This is the year of reaping, because a lot of us we've been through the work. And the work is a continued progress. You're always right now you think this is the most successful version of me, but once you get to that most successful version of you, there's a higher level to that. Okay. You're always going to want to achieve, you're always going to want to be better and better and better, because that's abundance. Okay. That's why abundance is infinite. That's part of us. We always want to achieve more and more and more, not materialistic, but we always want to get better with ourselves, because abundance is always growing and expanding. Okay. Energy is always growing and expanding. It's moving forward. That's why we have this instinct in us that we always want to improve. Okay. Now, sometimes it means us, and sometimes it does mean materialistic. That's why lots of times you want good things, because you want good things because it shows that you're improving. Okay, there's nothing wrong with having materialistic stuff. There's nothing wrong with having money and spending money. Okay, this is abundance. If abundance is infinite, that has to come to you. Okay, my friends. But anyway, we got to wrap this up. I know I've been talking for a while, 48 minutes. But anyway, this is the year of reaping, my friends. It's going to be a great year. 2026 is going to rock and roll for us. So I'm excited to see what 2026 is going to bring. And remember, if you have questions, comment below. If you have a deep question, leave a super thanks. Do the super thanks spotlight. Leave a question. That's what we talk about every single Sunday. So we're talking about in depth on Sundays. But other than that, remember, I love you guys, and I'll see you next Sunday.